wie es so bei Kongressen ist, wir haben ja gesagt, wir werden für Siri Sandberg aus Oslo, die ich recht herzlich begrüße, die zu uns ja sprechen wird über die Humanist Confirmation, also das Pendant in Norwegen zu unserer Jugendweihe. Und ich hatte ja schon mehrfach erwähnt, dass wir sind nicht stolz, aber wir bewundern es, dass sie 20% der Jugendlichen betreuen vom humanistischen norwegischen Verband. So. Und nun ist ihr Herz so voll, dass sie gesagt hat, mein Manuskript ist 1 Stunde lang. Wir hatten eigentlich überlegt, dass ich dann immer zwischendurch übersetze, weil ich so ein bisschen Englisch kann. Wenn wir das aber machen, dann haben wir 2-Stunden-Programm. Ich frage jetzt mal, wer kann überhaupt kein Englisch? Ja, das sind wenige und für die schlagen wir dann vor, wenn etwas nicht verstanden wird und Siri wird auch sehr langsam Englisch sprechen, machen wir dann Pausen, wenn Verständnisfragen sind. Ansonsten übersetze ich nicht jeden einzelnen Satz, dann brauchen wir 2 Stunden. Ich bitte um Verständnis und let's begin.
Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so happy to be here and be able to speak to you about our confirmation in Norway and what we do. Through speaking to all of you yesterday and today, I've learned that there are some things that you do in your Jugendweihe, which is very different from what we do, but then there are also some similarities. So I hope that through this little lecture you can get a bit better insight into what we do, and maybe hopefully we have some ideas for things that and experiences that you can use in your work as well. But before I say something about the confirmation, I need to explain just a little bit about who I am here on behalf of, who I'm representing, and my role in the organization. So, I want to start off by showing you a short film. We in the Norwegian Humanist Association had this film made to help us inform people about what we stand for, what our worldview is. And we showed this film to the humanists in England, Humanist UK, and they liked it so much that they made a version in English. So I will show you the film with an English voiceover and English text, so hopefully you can follow along.
Every human being is born free and with equal rights. The right to be who you are, to love whom you love, to say what you mean, to make your own choices. That doesn't mean that you can do whatever you want without being responsible for your actions. It's about creating a good, meaningful life, about showing respect and tolerance while still thinking freely, about seeking knowledge and justice, walking side by side with our fellow human beings. Because even though we're born free, we're all members of a community where we're responsible not just for ourselves, but also for each other. Because all we have is each other.
Yeah. So that, yeah. I think that film shortly sums up what we stand for as humanists. And the Norwegian Humanist Association is a national organization. And we do a lot of different things, but what we have in common is that we're all humanists. And we have volunteers and members who participate in activities and in our member democracy at a local, a regional, and a national level. And the members are the people that make decisions about what we should mean about different issues and what we should spend our time doing, what our activity should be about. And in that sense, we are a democratic member organization. And we have 94,000 members all over the country. And the national level of decision-making are elected volunteers from all around the country. And they inform our secretariat, our executive branch, about what we should spend our time working on. And we're very lucky to have a professional secretariat, which means that working for the administration of the National Humanist Association is a job. So I'm here as part of my full-time work. I'm not here as a volunteer. But we also have volunteers that do a lot of our activities.
Vielleicht ganz kurz, 2 Sätze. Das ist genau wie bei uns. Es gibt also sehr, sehr viele, haben wir gehört, ehrenamtliche Mitarbeiter. Und es gibt auch Hauptamtliche und Siri ist eine hauptamtliche Mitarbeiterin. Und ich weise auch nochmal auf unser Buch hin, auf Seite 146, folgende, steht ein ausführlicher Beitrag von Siri über die Jugendweihe in Norwegen. Da kann man dann das auch nochmal nachlesen, auf Englisch und aber auch auf Deutsch habe ich das übersetzt. Okay? In dem Buch, Seite 146 folgende. Danke, thank you.
And the Norwegian Humanist Association, we have about 85 employees, so about 85 people working full-time for us. And about 45 of those work at the regional level, so in regional offices all around the country doing administrative work. And then we're about 40 that work in the main office. So I work in the main office, and so does my colleague Ina, who's here from our political department. She's our international advisor. Whereas
every human being is born free.
Whereas I work in our Department of Ceremonies, and what we do as the Norwegian Humanist Association is that we provide 4 ceremonies: naming ceremonies, confirmations, weddings, and funerals. And this is the department that works with that at our national office. But a lot of the work to help this go around is done at the regional level. And I work with confirmation, which means that my job is to develop the content of the confirmation course, the content of our ceremonies, and to train volunteers in how to give good humanist confirmation courses and how to make good ceremonies. And 20% of all 15-year-olds in Norway, so 1 in 5, choose the humanist confirmation. And in 2019, we had 12,000 confirmants all around the country. So it's quite a big activity and a big responsibility. But we're very lucky to have a lot of excellent volunteers to work on that. But how did we get to the point where we have 94,000 members, 84 people on staff, and where 1 in 5 choose our confirmation? Now, to explain that, I want to go back, way back. These are my grandparents, my maternal grandparents. That's my mother's mother and my mother's father. And my grandfather was born in 1922, and he grew up in the north of Norway, in a small village, as one of 11 siblings. And when he was 14, he was old enough to be at sea on a fishing boat. And fishing was seasonal work, so his first period at sea lasted a few months. And when he came ashore, he used his first ever self-earned money to buy 2 things. He bought a large sack of flour that he took home and gave to his mother, and he bought his first ever suit. And And the suit holds significance for the topic of this lecture because he was one of 11 siblings, worked on a small farm, risked his life on seasonal winter fishing in the north of Norway. Why would he spend money on something as extravagant as a suit? And to understand that, we need to jump 200 years more back in time. Do you want to shortly translate that? Do you want to just check that everyone got that?
Also ganz kurz, nicht? Wir sind bei den Großeltern von Siri und der hat ja als Fischermann gearbeitet, auch im Winter, was eine sehr strenge Arbeit war, und dann hat er Geld verdient. Und was hat er gemacht? Er hat sich einen ganz tollen Anzug gekauft. Und die Frage ist, warum? Und jetzt gehen wir nochmal wieder zurück in der Zeit und sehen jetzt hier eine Familie, die sicherlich mit Siri zu tun hat. There are people having to do with your family.
No.
No?
No, not at all. All right. I'm getting to the picture. In 1736, a Protestant confirmation was made mandatory by the state of Denmark, Norway. That meant that you had to have a Protestant confirmation, and your rights as a citizen was tied to you having your Protestant confirmation. Without the confirmation, you couldn't own land, and the church was the only place that you could get married, so you couldn't get married without a confirmation. And when everyone had access to vote, you couldn't vote without having a confirmation first. Plus, there were these other little things that, for instance, boys wore shorter pants or trousers before their confirmation, and they got to wear long pants after their confirmation. So it was really a true coming of age, becoming an adult type ritual in society, and you were not counted as fully adult until you had had your confirmation.
Also 1736 gab es die ganz enge Verbindung von Thron und Altar, und nur wer seine Konfirmation hatte, die christliche Konfirmation, war überhaupt ein Mensch, nicht? Der durfte wählen, der durfte einen Beruf ausüben und so weiter und so weiter. Und wer das nicht hatte, der konnte eigentlich überhaupt nichts machen. Das war der Zwang der Kirche, und das hatte zur Folge, dass die Menschen gar nicht drüber nachgedacht haben, was bedeutet das eigentlich. Was aber auch wir kennen, ist, dass man, bevor man eine Konfirmation hatte, hatten die Jungs kurze Hosen, und nach der Konfirmation durften sie lange Hosen haben. Gab es bei uns ja auch früher mal, heute ist es ja andersrum.
Now, on the one hand, this was obviously religious indoctrination, but on the other hand, there wasn't much schooling to be had in Norway in the early 1700s. And since this was a Protestant confirmation, one of the things that the kids actually had to learn was to read the Bible by themselves. So as a result of this mandatory confirmation, literacy rates rose. But in 1911, it was made no longer mandatory to have a Protestant confirmation anymore, and it was not required for everyone to do so. But the custom was so ingrained in the population that everyone still had one. So this picture is from 1912, and it's taken from the southeast of the country. And most people, like these people, lived their lives just like my grandfather, in small rural communities with a high degree of social transparency and very strict social norms. So it was not a general, like a question for people in general to not have a confirmation. So even though it was no longer mandatory, everyone still did it, and their social standing and acceptance was dependent upon them having a confirmation.
Es hat also bis 1911 gedauert, bis dieser Zwang, die Konfirmation zu haben, so als richtiges Gesetz aufgegeben wurde. Und ab 1911 war es keine Pflicht mehr. Aber das, was wir auch von uns ja gerade in den westlichen Bundesländern kannten, galt damals auch. Also man macht das. Man kam gar nicht auf die Idee, nicht zur Konfirmation zu gehen, sondern es war eine Gewohnheit. Also ging man weiterhin und hatte weiterhin die Konfirmation.
And that was why my grandfather needed a suit. We had to reach 1950 before an alternative became possible. It was no surprise that the first ever civil confirmation was in Oslo, the biggest city in the country, where social norms were somewhat less strict. A father, Christian Horn, which is pictured here, and his daughter decided that they wanted to celebrate her coming of age in a way that reflected their outlook and their values.
Also 1951 war es denn soweit, dass der Vater und die Tochter gesagt haben, also ich möchte dieses Coming of Age, also dieses Erwachsenwerden, nicht mehr nach den kirchlichen Riten feiern, sondern wir möchten das selber machen und selber Verantwortung für uns übernehmen und nicht irgendwelche Dogmen haben. Das war also 1951, da fing es sozusagen richtig an.
They realized that if they were going to have a celebration, they would have to make it themselves. So, in the first information pamphlet about the civil confirmation, Mr. Horn here wrote, "For those people who do not have a need to believe in an almighty supernatural being, it is regrettable that all ethical teaching has religious conversion as its goal." And what he meant by that was that if young people were curious and they wanted to explore the big questions in life and figure out what their values should be and what they thought about right or wrong, there was no place for them to do so without religion. And in a religious context, the goal would not be exploration, but conversion. So he wanted to make sure that young people could learn about ethics without religion. And as a result, 34 teenagers met to discuss ethics and existential questions. And after the preparations in the winter and spring of 1951, the first ever civil confirmation ceremony was held in Oslo. And the mayor of Oslo gave the speech.
Hat dann damals ein Pamphlet, also so ein Flugblatt herausgegeben, in dem sagte, dass sie eben nicht mehr diese christliche Konfirmation wollten. Und weil Jugendliche ja neugierig von Natur aus sind, wollte er das an sie weitergeben. Und es hat dann also tatsächlich eine Feier gegeben für die Jugendweihe, aber auch, so ähnlich wie wir das ja bei uns gehörten, mit Instruktion vorher, wo also Werte verkündet werden. Und es waren dann 34 Teenager, die damals diese erste, sie nannten das zunächst zivile Confirmation und dann hinterher die bürgerliche Confirmation und dann zum Schluss jetzt ja wie heute die humanistische Konfirmation, also Humanist Confirmation. Die ersten waren 34 Teenager.
I think Connie just actually said this, but it was called a civil confirmation at first. And it was a course on good citizenship. So they learned what they needed to become responsible citizens. And later the name was changed. And today it's called the Humanist Confirmation. And both the course and the ceremony have a clear humanist content today. But I'll get back to that. In the 50s and 60s, the civil confirmation continued in Oslo and spread to other cities like Bergen and Trondheim. It was, however, just a small minority who made this choice, and they were often told how wrong their choice was in no uncertain terms. And we have accounts of priests showing up at the doorstep, angry letters to newspapers, and teenagers being told that they would be prayed for because they would probably end up in hell.
Also die Anfänge waren sehr schwer, nicht? Dann kam der Pastor angewackelt, wie wir das zum Teil bei uns ja auch noch kennen. Also das Kind wäre ja gar nicht richtig glücklich, wenn es nicht die christliche Konfirmation hat. Und so wurde dann so Druck auf die Mutter und den Vater ausgeübt. Und das war ohnehin ja schwierig, weil auf dem flachen Land es noch nicht so den Fortschritt gab wie in den Städten, sondern da war alles sehr transparent. Also jeder kriegte mit, was der Nachbar tat. Und da der Nachbar das nicht gut fand, dann musste man sich also wirklich intensiv durchsetzen, um dann zu diesen 34 zu gehören.
In 1979, when these lovely people were confirmants, there were still only about 600 humanist confirmants in Norway. But through the 80s and 90s, more people left the state church and more people joined the Humanist Association. And humanist confirmation reached the rural areas of the countries, and this development was driven by demand. And both the course and ceremony were organized by volunteers, and often parents turned volunteers to make sure that their child had a choice. And 20 years later, in 1999, the number of confirmands was more than 7,000. So from 600 to 7,000 in 20 years. But it's the 80s. You can probably see from like the color palette there. But there was a general process of secularization in the 80s and 90s, which helped this development. And the Norwegian Humanist Association had campaigns urging people to leave the church. And at the same time, a record number of people became members of the Norwegian Humanist Association. And teachers in schools had always informed their students about the Christian confirmation, but it was only in 1972 that they were allowed to tell their students that there was an alternative. So that them being able to give information helped as well. So the Norwegian Humanist Association went from having 1,500 members in 1981 to 40,000 members in 1990. So it wasn't just a confirmation that grew on its own, there was also a growth in members. And today we have confirmands all over the country. But the larger towns still holds a higher percentage of the 15-year-olds choosing us compared to the more rural areas. Confirmation is tradition, and traditions are hard to change and harder to change in more conservative areas. And
das kennen wir ja auch, nicht?
Ja.
Dass in rural, also in ländlichen Gegenden die Traditionen noch länger und andauernder sind und dass es also sehr viel schwieriger ist, da die Tradition zu brechen und neue Ideen reinzubringen. Und das sagte sie ja eben auch, bis 72 war es, glaube ich, durften die Lehrer in den Schulen zwar auf die christliche Konfirmation hinweisen, aber nicht auf die Alternative. Und das finde ich interessant, dass dann anschließend die Lehrer auf beides hinweisen durften. Das ist bei uns ja auch nicht so, nicht? Dass die Lehrer auf beide, sie dürfen das theoretisch, aber sie tun es nicht. I just said it was interesting that teachers could mention the alternative. In Germany they are allowed to do that, but nobody does it.
I see. And today I think that we're in a kind of symbiotic relationship with the church, because they, through making confirmation mandatory, established a tradition, like a tradition that everyone took part in. But because we have provided an alternative, we've helped maintain the tradition. Because if the alternative was the church or nothing, then just the numbers of people having a confirmation at all would just decline, and the more people would just not have one. But because there is an alternative, the question that 14-year-olds are asked is not, will you have a confirmation, but what kind of confirmation will you have?
Also das ist auch ein interessanter Gesichtspunkt, der für uns ja in dem Maße nicht gilt. Nicht? In Hamburg, da macht der überwiegende Teil gar nichts, weder Konfirmation noch Jugendweihe. Und sie sagte, hier war das in Norwegen eben so, dadurch, dass es die beiden Möglichkeiten gab, also christliche und humanistische Konfirmation, konnten die sich entscheiden, und das hat dazu geführt, dass es dann auch mehr Teilnehmer waren. I just said, in Hamburg, a lot of young people don't do anything. So there is the alternative, but they just refuse to do anything.
Now, I said that I wanted to explain how we got to having 1 in 5 15-year-olds choose our confirmation, and how we got to having 94,000 members. But we're also very lucky to have a lot of people working, to have a lot of paid staff. We have 85 people that have a full-time job working for our organization. And that is mainly due to how we are funded. We're in a kind of ironically lucky situation because this is a political cartoon, satire drawing. And the Christian party, represented by their former party leader there in the middle, hold a special position in Norwegian politics. They're a centrist party, and in this picture you see the Conservative Party leader on the right and the Labour Party leader on the left, kind of vying for their attention and their cooperation. So oftentimes they're the ones who decide who gets to form a government if we have to have a coalition government. And that means that both the left and the right are willing to grant their demands. And that's one of the reasons that the church has such a strong position as it has today and why it is so well funded. But we also have a principle that says that you can't discriminate against any organization or group that is religious or represents a life stance. So that means that if the church is going to be well funded, so is everyone else.
That is very good, very good. Also sie hat erzählt, dass ja die politischen Parteien, so ähnlich wie in Deutschland, nicht, sowohl die Linksparteien als auch die konservativen Parteien, die unterstützen die Kirche ganz massiv und dadurch kriegen sie auch Gelder, offizielle Staatsgelder. Nun gibt es aber die glückliche Situation, dass in Norwegen man nicht diskriminiert werden darf. Und weil das so ist, kriegt dann auch also die humanistische Verband Gelder. Und das ist der Grund auch dafür, dass sie so viele Festangestellte haben können. Und das kennen wir auch alle. Wenn ich Festangestellte habe, so kann ich dann auch wieder Werbung machen und kann wieder mehr Kinder betreuen. Also der Vorteil, dass die Kirchen Geld kriegt, das ist ja auch so wie in Berlin übrigens hier in Deutschland, ist dass dann auch der humanistische Verband Gelder kriegt.
So that was a bit of history that explains the position that we're in today. But I want to also talk to you a little bit about what we actually do in the course and in the ceremony. Because I understand that's not the case for all of you, but for us, the confirmants, the young people, they have to attend the course in order to be able to have the ceremony and participate in the ceremony. And our courses are generally about 20 hours. Some do it as weekend courses, some do it as a camp, and some do it as weekly meetings for like 2 hours for 10 weeks or so. And generally, there's normally 5 to 25 confirmants in a group. And we have course leaders that lead the whole course, which means that we have volunteers that decide the content of the course and lead the confirmants through the whole thing.
Es ist also ähnlich wie in Hamburg. Die Kurse müssen besucht werden. Wenn man die Kurse nicht besucht, kann man keine Feier haben. Und da gibt es auch eine Mindestanzahl von Stunden. Und die Kursleiter betreuen dann die Jugendlichen und entwickeln aber auch für den Kurs Modelle, wobei die Oberentwicklerung ja Siri ist für dieses Kursmaterial und für die Kurse.
And we say that our confirmation is open to anyone who wants it, regardless of their or their parents' convictions. We offer no easy answers, and thinking about what you want your values to be and what your beliefs are could be useful for anyone at that age, regardless of what you actually believe. But however, we also say that even though our confirmation is open to anyone, it's not suitable for everyone. It's not necessarily the right choice for everyone, and that's okay. Both the course and the ceremony have a clear humanist profile. But our goal is not conversion, but self-discovery and information.
Das ist ganz wichtig, das hatte ich vorhin auch gar nicht erwähnt. Also früher war es ja tatsächlich so, dass man immer wieder versucht hat, Menschen zu konvertieren, also zu beeinflussen, zu missionieren. Und das machen sie überhaupt nicht, sondern das ist eben Aufklärung. Und damit unterscheiden sie sich sehr deutlich.
Now, our course has no syllabus. There's nothing that the confirmants specifically have to do, or the course leaders have to do with the confirmants. But we have some tools to make sure that the course has a certain similarity throughout the country. So the first of those tools is the main aim of the course. And you can read it here, but the main aim of the course is to increase the confirmants' ability to think independently and act ethically. And we do that through promoting insight into their own experiences, ability to reflect and ask critical questions, to make them aware of what their values and what their worldview is, and promote their ability to care about and respect others. Now, this says something about the methods we use for our course, because nowhere on here does it say the ability to listen to someone older than you tell you how the world works. It's about them. It's about the confirmants. It's about their ability to reflect and ask questions and their awareness of their own values. And for them to start discovering all that, it's paramount that we ask them, what do you think? And not only should they think about that for themselves, but they should get training in forming a coherent argument and test their arguments against others to sharpen and adjust their arguments and what they believe in. And that's why we use activities and exercises designed to get them engaged and no lectures. And I'm doing a workshop afterwards where I'll be showing some of the methods that we use.
Also es werden die verschiedensten Methoden angewandt, um die Jugendlichen einzufangen und sie davon zu überzeugen, dass sie ihren eigenen Verstand schärfen müssen, dass sie sich durchsetzen müssen, dass sie auf Argumente eingehen müssen, aber eben auch andere respektieren müssen. Und Siri macht ja anschließend im Workshop noch einmal so einige Ausführungen zu den Methoden, die sie mit den Jugendlichen anwenden, um die Jugendlichen nicht nur bei der Stange zu halten, sondern sie auch in die Lage zu versetzen, ihre Ziele zu erkennen und auch zu formulieren.
When the Norwegian Humanist Association turned 60, we interviewed a lot of former confirmants. And what a lot of them spoke about was the feeling, they remembered the feeling of being taken seriously. They got to discuss big questions, things they cared about, and they were taken seriously, not talked down to or told what they should think. And that's something that we've tried to maintain. So we have this main aim, and then we have 5 topics that make up the content of the course. And I understand that this is a little bit different here, but then you can compare. So the 5 topics that we say that they have to include in their course are humanism, human rights, critical thinking.
This is very important, of course. Humanism, also Humanismus, dann Menschenrechte und kritisches Denken. Das sind so die ersten 3 wichtigen Punkte, ja?
Yeah, and there's 5. Identity and ethics and moral.
Und dann die eigene Identität oder Identität ist ein wichtiges Thema und dann Ethik und Moral. Das sind die 5 Hauptthemen und damit kommen wir, glaube ich, sehr gut zurecht.
And these topics are very wide and overarching, and they can entail a number of different questions. And like I said, there is no syllabus. So every course leader has the choice in how they want to approach these subjects with their group. And obviously the confirmants can't go through a whole course without knowing anything about humanism. But there is no test for them to pass. There is no knowledge that we require they have at the end of the course. If all the confirmants do is show up and be present and otherwise behave themselves, then we still let them have the confirmation. But this isn't a course of knowledge. The aim of the course is reflection. And for many, this is just a starting point. It's about awakening their interest in questions of right and wrong. And hopefully they keep thinking about these questions their whole life, something which is far more valuable than giving them a test where we test their knowledge on humanism.
Also ganz wichtig, und da sind wir, glaube ich, auch wieder einer Meinung, ist, dass das da nicht so ein Curriculum ist oder ein Kurs, wo dann hinterher abgefragt wird, welche Menschenrechte kennst du, sondern es geht darum, dass man dieses mitbekommt. Und dann sagt sie auch, wenn da junge Leute sind, die eigentlich gar nicht so ganz richtig zuhören, aber es ist so, dass durch dieses System sie immer wieder doch auf die Themen zurückkommen und dann kriegen sie da schon was mit, ohne dass es am Ende einen Test gibt. Also sie kriegen die Jugendweihefeier, also die Konfirmation, schon, wenn sie immer dabei sind und ich sage jetzt mal nicht störend.
So this is pictures of some confirmants doing a get-to-know each other exercise, and we encourage our course leaders to spend time on letting the confirmants get to know each other, to build a good group. Because if they're going to participate and discuss the more difficult questions, then they should get to know each other first and feel safe and feel like this is an environment where it's possible to talk to each other honestly and yeah, just feel safe in that environment.
Also sie werden, das sieht man auch hier, sie lernen sich erstmal gegenseitig kennen und sie sollen sich respektieren und sie sollen sich aber auch wohlfühlen in dieser Gruppe. Denn nur wenn man sich in einer Gruppe wohlfühlt und sich sicher findet, dann kann man auch die anderen Fragen besprechen und hat eine offene Meinung oder hat ein offenes, ist offen für andere Probleme, wenn man eine sichere Umgebung hat. Und das wird also zu Anfang intensiv gelernt oder angestrebt.
Yeah, and we want to keep the course dynamic, to keep them engaged. And talking about existential questions or human rights can be pretty heavy, and we want them to have fun too. So we have the main aim of the course, which informs the method that we use. And then we have the 5 topics, which informs the content. But then we give the course leaders 2 other tools as well. One of the tools is a book that all the confirmants get at the start of a course, but we say that the course should be different from school in both content and form. So it's not necessary to use the book all that much. It's more for reading on their own if they like to.
Also was sie machen, darüber könnte man auch mal nachdenken. Hatte ich auch schon mehrfach gedacht, ob man dieses Jugendweihe-Geschenkbuch nicht am Anfang der Jugendweihe ihnen gibt, damit sie dann schon mal drin lesen können. Und dann sagt sie auch, das Buch, das soll kein Schulbuch sein, sondern es soll Ideen zeigen und man kann immer mal wieder darauf zurückkommen.
Yeah. And the second tool is a database. And we know we're very lucky to be well-funded and have a lot of staff that can work on things like that. But this is a database for all the course leaders. And in it, there are more than 80 different exercises that they can do with their confirmants on the 5 subjects. And they can use a filter to find what they're looking for based on how many confirmants they have and how much time they have and which topic they want. And if maybe they don't have time to do a lot of preparation, then they can filter for that as well. So those things together informs our course or how we want our course to be. So even though the course leaders as volunteers own their own course and decide what they want to do, they feel a sense of ownership to their course. We still want them to stay within a frame of mind that we want for our course. So we want them to be similar in certain ways, but different in others.
Also was ganz wichtig ist, dass diese Kursleiter ja so ein Gerüst haben, aber ihnen wird nicht genau vorgeschrieben, was sie machen sollen, denn sie sollen den Kurs selber gestalten und dann auch fühlen, dass es ihr eigener Kurs ist. Und den Rahmen hatten wir ja die 5 Themen gehört, der wird dann schon beachtet und hilft ihnen als so ein roter Faden, der für diese einzelnen Übungen, es gibt so ungefähr 80 Übungen, die natürlich nicht alle gemacht werden, aber die im Angebot sind. Dieser rote Faden wird durch diese 5 Themenfelder gewährleistet.
Yeah. I want to say a little bit about the ceremonies that we have, and I understand that in some ways they're fairly similar to the one you have here in Hamburg. But our ceremonies also varies throughout the country. The smallest ceremony I was ever at had 5 confirmants, and the biggest that I ever attended was that one, and it had 88. So obviously the ceremonies are going to be different. Two ceremonies are never alike, in part due to them taking place in different localities or having different artists, etc. But like with the cause, we want them to have some similarities that make them humanist. So we want our ceremonies to be dignified and formal, but to have an atmosphere of optimism. And sometimes people confuse dignified with solemn or very serious. And we want to take the situation seriously, but that doesn't mean that it can't be joyful or optimistic. So there are two things we want to convey to the audience through the ceremony. The first is that this is a festive occasion. It's something extraordinary as opposed to everyday life. And we have tools to do that, such as the clothing that we wear, the way we speak, the way people carry themselves on stage, etc. And the second thing we want to show is the content of our worldview. We want the ceremony to be humanist. And we do that through symbolism and through text, if it's poems, lyrics to songs, or a main speech.
Hier haben wir also auch wieder eine Gemeinsamkeit. Es soll ein würdevoller Festakt sein. Und man schreibt zwar nicht vor, du musst einen Sakko tragen, aber durch das eigene Auftreten und durch die Hinweise und auch dadurch, dass man zeigt, wie die Feiern vorgelaufen sind, da erreicht man das schon. Und das Zweite ist, dass die Feier auch, genau wie bei uns, zeigen soll, dass es eine Feier von Humanisten ist, wo humanistische Inhalte vergegenwärtigt werden, also durch Gedichte, durch Rezitation und durch Musik. Also da sind wir uns sehr ähnlich.
And the ceremony often starts with a procession like this one, where the confirmands walk into music and take their place on stage or in the front row. And we do that to show who the ceremony is about, where the focus should be. And throughout the ceremony there is music and poetry and sometimes dance. And we want the poems and the lyrics of the songs to convey something about the humanist worldview. And if at all possible, we also want the lyrics to say something about being young or the period of life that the confirmands are in. And we also advise that we use Norwegian lyrics for everything, so that lyrics are easily accessible to everyone.
Das ist ja interessant. Dass also diese Lieder und auch die Gedichte, die sollen logischerweise Inhalte transportieren, aber wenn ich es richtig verstanden habe, sollen sie nach Möglichkeit auch norwegisch sein und für alle verständlich sein.
And someone is always invited to give the main speech to the confirmands, and it should be someone that has something to say to the young people. And when we ask people to come and speak at our ceremony, they're generally given some guidelines for their speech. Like, we don't want them to say anything negative about any other religions or in any way imply that our confirmants has made a better choice than anyone else. We want the speaker to offer some perspective on the period of their life, that the confirmants are in, and to give them some advice for the future. And we also want the speaker to say something which is in line with our worldview, and preferably something positive and uplifting about the possibilities the confirmants have to lead good lives.
Also es werden genau wie bei uns Redner eingeladen, die kriegen so eine kleine, auch wieder so eine kleine Angabe, was denn gewünscht ist. Und es ist gewünscht natürlich wieder Humanismus, nicht negativ über andere zu reden und die Weltanschauung der Humanisten auch in der Rede anklingen zu lassen.
Now, I don't know if you do this as well, but for us, the definite highlight of the ceremony is when each confirmand is called forward by name to receive a diploma. And we think that this is also important to show that it is a humanist ceremony, because each individual gets attention, but at the same time, the attention is the same for everyone.
Genau, das haben wir auch, dass also die einzelnen hier heißen ja dann Konfirmanden, also bei uns Jugendweihe-Teilnehmer oder Jugendweilinge, dass die nach vorne gerufen werden und jeder ist ein Individuum im Sinne dessen, was wir gehört hatten über Humanismus. Auf der anderen Seite aber sind sie auch Teil dieser humanistischen Gruppe. Das ist also genau wie bei uns, we do the same.
And you can also note that the handing over of the diploma is done on an equal footing with a handshake. Towards the end of the ceremony, there's normally a song where the guests join in and everyone sings together. And we do that with different songs, but the most used song is a Norwegian version of something I think you sing as well, which is Die Gedanken sind frei. Yeah. So we sing that in Norwegian. But there's a part in the German version about women and wine, and that's lost in translation. But apart from that, I think it's the same. So, in summary, if you should take anything away from this, I hope that you remember that we in the Norwegian Humanist Association know that we're in a very lucky position when it comes to both funding and the position that our confirmation holds in society. We have put a lot of effort and resources into developing exercises and activities for the course and making that available for all course leaders. Because we do believe that getting the confirmants engaged is what makes a good course. And when they are fully engaged in discussing, that's when the course works and it meets its main aim. And we want our ceremonies to be dignified and formal, yet joyful. And we use the tools we have to ensure that our ceremonies are both dignified and truly humanist. So we put a massive amount of time and resources into making confirmation happen every year for 12,000 people. So why do we do it? Firstly, we want people to be able to mark the important occasions in life in a way that is aligned with their worldview and their values. Secondly, we know that ceremonies have a social function. Being invited to a friend's child's naming or your niece's confirmation, being included like that makes you part of something. It shows that you have a role and that you're important in someone's life. So it fills the need for community. And thirdly, traditions are important to people. Traditions help bind society together. But we all need traditions that make sense to us. And fourthly, offering these ceremonies are a way of upholding the human right that is freedom of religion, because everyone should be free to mark the big occasions in their life in a way that feels right to them.
Ja, also zum Schluss nochmal die 4 Gründe, warum das angeboten wird. Also hatten wir gesagt, also der Humanismus soll unterstützt werden noch einmal und sie sollen sich auch wohlgefühlen und sie sollen auch in die Gesellschaft aufgenommen werden, genau wie bei uns das ist. Und what was the fourth one, please? The fourth reason?
Freedom of religion.
Ach ja, natürlich, ganz wichtig, eben die Freedom of Religion, also die Freiheit der Religion, dass das nochmal unterstützt wird, dass die Humanisten also für die Freiheit der Religion sind, so im Sinne auch der Menschenrechte. Und das sind die Gründe, weshalb sie dieses weiterführen, auch als junge, aber immerhin schon bekannte Tradition.
And that's my time, I think. Thank you.
Also auf Dänisch würde ich sagen, mange tak. Wie heißt das auf Norwegisch?
Tusen tak.
Tusen tak, tusen
Ja.
tak, tusen tak. Also herzlichen Dank. Ich weise noch einmal darauf hin, dass in dem Buch ein Text steht von Siri, den sie geschrieben hat, der da die wesentlichen Punkte aufgreift, auch die Zahlen, wie sich das vermehrt hat und wie damals noch die Kirche dominiert hat. Und jetzt haben sie eben die Chance, auch durch die Unterstützung des Staates, diese tollen Feiern anzubieten und eben jetzt jeder Fünfte, also 20%, zu dieser Humanist Confirmation zur Jugendweihe kommen. Wir danken euch, dass ihr das macht und auf dieser Ebene, denke ich, sollten wir weiter besprechen, auch nochmal mit dem Humanistischen Verband, dass man sich gegenseitig stützen kann. Es gibt in dem Buch auch noch ein humanistisches Manifest der skandinavischen Länder. Das wollen wir uns auch nochmal ansehen, denn das kann man sofort unterschreiben. Das humanistische Manifest der skandinavischen Länder ist in dem Buch und das werden wir garantiert nochmal besprechen, weil das auch eine gemeinsame Basis für alles ist. Also the Humanist Manifest is the base for all of us.
Ja.
Herzlichen Dank, thank you very much indeed.